Out of the World Cup, which kicked off in less than 6 weeks, but serious questions are being asked about costs, human rights and the politics shaping the global football tournament. Those issues and more came up in FIFA's annual meeting this week in Vancouver, Canada, which is one of the 3 host nations, along with Mexico and the United States.
Anger in Vancouver over the World Cup's impact on the city, the host of 7 games. Among the protesters outside the FIFA Congress were hotel workers who claimed the soaring costs of rooms is not translating to better pay conditions. Homelessness advocates warned vulnerable people are being displaced ahead of the tournament.
There's so much money being spent on these games as well that could be going into building tiny homes or a place for people to shelter in vehicles or housing. Could go a really long way, but instead it's being used on 7 events.
It has been a frequent criticism from locals and fans travelling for the 5.5-week-long World Cup. The football body defended their pricing procedure.
We sold 100% of the inventory that we put on the market, which is more or less 90% of the global inventory so far. And of course, we are always putting tickets on the market. There are expensive tickets, yes, but there are also affordable tickets. And what is important is that all the revenues that we generate from the World Cup go back to you.
The FIFA president took the opportunity to announce he would be seeking re-election. However, several countries' associations, including Germany, are not backing him. Human rights issues, transparency and political entanglements have weakened his bid. Infantino has claimed FIFA has changed and has pushed for football over politics, such as the inclusion of Iran in the World Cup, despite the ongoing war in the Middle East. It's a move backed by US President Donald Trump.
Iran will be participating at the FIFA World Cup 2026. And of course, Iran will play in the United States of America. And the reason for that is very simple, dear friends, is because we have to unite.
Infantino has been criticised for an unsuccessful attempt to mediate a handshake between the Israeli and Palestinian delegates. The Palestinian Football Association has long called for Israel to be sanctioned by FIFA. Israel has rejected any suspension or exclusion from the footballing body.
All right, let's pick through some of this with Kieran Canning. Kieran's a senior football correspondent at the AFP News Agency. He joins us from London. Well, welcome. What sort of reaction has there been to that stunt we just saw, Gianni Infantino failing to get the Israeli and Palestinian delegates to shake hands?
I think the reaction has been, as you would expect. This was a classic example of Gianni Infantino, the opportunist, looking to be seen to be bringing the 2 sides of the Palestine and Israeli conflict together. But I think, as it was clearly seen in those pictures, that sometimes what he would like to see as this great unifying force in football and in the World Cup that he constantly talks about does clash with the reality. He is not going to be able to bring together the 2 sides of the Palestine and Israeli conflict, no matter how much he tries to pull off a stunt of a photo opportunity. So I think, as usual, in this sort of situation, the people that are more often open to criticising Infantino have picked up on that he tried to get this photo opportunity and it didn't work out.
OK, so what do you think the chances that this World Cup, with this American president, with Iran, the USA and Israel involved in a war, can stay free of politics?
I think any World Cup is inherently political. I mean, you have nations playing against each other. That is the essence of the World Cup. But even more so in this World Cup, with everything, as you say, to have an unprecedented situation where you have a host nation in the USA bombing a participant nation in Iran just a few weeks ahead of the tournament, added to all the other issues that are going to be going on in the US, both in terms of its domestic issues and obviously internationally. I think to remove trying to remove politics from this World Cup is completely impossible. It's going to be a running theme throughout the tournament, both because of the political situation we have in the world right now, but also because of the format of the tournament itself. The format has changed this time. It's gone from a 32-team tournament to a 48-team tournament, which means it's a much longer tournament, and especially in those early stages, the games have much less jeopardy. Therefore, it gives a lot more air time to for people like us, the media and the fans, to concentrate on a lot of those issues around the tournament, whether it be issues in the host city or protests or wherever it might be. That that's going to get even more airtime than a normal World Cup because of that different format this time around.
Talk to us about the money it takes to stage this tournament. We've seen how reluctant countries have become to host the Olympics, for instance, because it just costs so much. This summer's World Cup's being shared between 3 countries. Is anyone besides FIFA going to be making money?
Yeah, that tends to be the case with the World Cup, that FIFA, tend to come in and impose their own rules. And in previous World Cups, you can see it in terms of like tax arrangements on places like Brazil and South Africa, hoover up all this money. What they will say, and Infantino said in that clip, was that the amount of money that they generate, they do then this is their one opportunity every 4 years to make money, and then they plough that money back into all the national federations to grow the good of the game, the grassroots game. It's not just money that goes to executives. It's there to grow the future of football over the next 4-year cycle. But as you say, not only because of the rising costs, but because FIFA have expanded the tournament to go to 48 teams, it's becoming more and more difficult to find host nations. The next tournament's going to be spread over even more countries when you take into account that the vast majority of it will be in Spain, Portugal and Morocco, but we're also going to have games, it seems, in Argentina and Uruguay to kick it off. And then the World Cup after that is set to go to Saudi Arabia, who are one of the very few nations willing to spend what it takes to host a World Cup. So as these tournaments get bigger and bigger, and
right.
for FIFA, the whole point of having a bigger tournament is that it means there's more tickets to sell, there's more TV rights, there's more commercial opportunities. That's just going to make it harder and harder for them to sell that to a potential host.
And what about the cost for fans then? The ticket prices, accommodation, travel, all of that. Do you need to be rich to get to this World Cup?
It certainly would seem that way. Again, we saw in that clip of Infantino trying to defend ticket pricing, but I think it's taken everyone by surprise. I think people knew this would be an expensive World Cup in terms of just the cost of living in the United States at the moment, which is hosting the vast majority of games. But we've seen absolutely exorbitant prices, not only for tickets for matches, just for parking in the stadiums. Add into that, obviously, the cost of flights, accommodation. It's very difficult to see how this is a World Cup, for the many rather than for the few. And throw into that, I mean, it's extremely expensive even for your average European fan to go. But we're seeing a huge number of nations making the World Cup debut, from countries like the Cape Verde or Curacao. The idea that, or Haiti, these fans from these countries will be able to go and afford the prices of travel, accommodation and ticketing in the US, I think is fanciful.
Good talking to you, Kieran. Thanks for talking us through that. Kieran Canning from the AFP News Agency.